Our next panel discussion is on the topic of strengthening SCERT and Samagra Shiksha Reading Initiative. The discussion will focus at state reading program strengthened through AI-driven assessments, teacher capacity building platforms, digital pedagogy, and data-informed planning. For this excellent topic, I would like to introduce on stage our panelists, Shri Partha Sarthi Sen Sharma, Additional Chief Secretary, Department of School Education, Government of UP. Sir is known for his focus on educational reforms, digital governance, and public service. Recently, UP has also started an extensively effective reading campaign to strengthen reading culture and reducing screen time in the roots of the state. Our next panelist is Professor Indu Kumar. She is serving as a head of Department of Information and Communication Technology at Central Institute of Educational Technology, a constituent unit of NCERT, and also holds a critical role of National Coordinator for Diksha, that is, Digital Infrastructure for Knowledge Sharing Platform. This platform oversees digital initiatives and e-content development for school education. Please give her a huge round of applause. Our next panelist is Mr. Shiladitya Ghosh, Senior Program Manager, Peepul. Sir is leading teacher professional development initiatives in Madhya Pradesh with a focus on middle grades. Please give him a round of applause. Our next panelist is Dr. Buddha Chandrasekhar, CEO of Anuvadani Foundation. This is an AI-driven initiative under the Ministry of Education, and it's an advanced program of language translation for Indian languages to bridge communication gap in education and beyond. I would also like to invite our moderator Shri Gaurav Singh, Associate Project Director, FLN Central Square Foundation. Please join me in welcoming them with a round of applause. The panel is over to you, Mr. Gaurav. Thank you.
Hey, am I audible? Yes, hi. No, thank you so much for the esteemed panelists to be making it to this space. I think I want to, given that the last panel stressed, I think we are tight on timelines. I want to directly jump into setting the context of it. Over the past years, government has spent significant time of bandwidth focus and budgets on being able to focus reading as a skill for children. We have had Nipun Bharat program. There is foundational skill of reading being emphasized a lot. At the same time, initiatives at Samagra Shiksha have been empowering schools to be able to set up reading culture. Like there have been budgets ranging from 5,000 to 20,000 where schools can be setting up libraries. There have been reading campaigns, reading programs. Today's conversation will be to set in context of how do we do better at creating the leap from reading as a skill for a child to reading as a habit for a child. And I think I want to ground all our conversations within that. And with that, let's start. The first question is, I think I wanted to start with something that brings us all together, which is the love of reading. And to make it a little more personal, I would want to hear from you as to where can you trace back your love for reading from, so that we are able to get a little bit of pulse of where we sit as a group here. Yeah. So anybody can start us off, and I know Dr. Partha Sarthi has also been a writer. So, sorry, Sir Partha Sarthi has also been a writer. So maybe extend it into how did that manifest?
Everybody has his own story. My story is that I grew up in Delhi, and उस ज़माने में there used to be lending libraries. एक market के अंदर एक छोटे सा अलमारी के अंदर सारी किताबें होती थी. And people of my generation would remember वो ₹1 में एक दिन की किताब होती थी. So एक दिन में खत्म करनी है क्योंकि तभी अगले दिन दूसरी किताब मिलेगी. So that is how the reading started as a habit. क्योंकि Hardy Boys हो या Nancy Drew हो एक ही दिन में खत्म करनी है तो फिर अगले दिन उसी किताब पे दोबारा ₹1 पढ़ते रहेंगे. So that is how the reading developed. And actually जो आप कह रहे थे reading की habit emphasizing a lot on learning to read. But reading to learn is a separate thing. So जब FLL की बात करें तो that is learning to read, but then the next step comes, reading to learn. And आजकल the main reason जिसकी वजह से हम कम पढ़ रहे हैं, apart from everything, is actually this. Everybody is only distracted by this. Reels are more important than reads now. So इसलिए I think the problem is, but as a society we have to consciously now take a decision that at least among our children we have to reduce the real time and increase the read time.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much. Ma'am, over to you.
I think people of our generation have the same experience as sir just mentioned.
Yeah.
So apart from that, we had a print-rich environment at home also. A lot of magazines, books used to come home to introduce children with the teaching, to learning and reading. I remember my father used to bring magazines like Dharmyog, Illustrated Weekly, Kadambari, and many more. So there used to be a column for children as well in these magazines. So my first introduction to reading were through those columns which were meant for children and which gradually take us to other reading also associated with magazines. That is how we generated our interest in reading, and those landing library were also. And also we children used to exchange books to just make our treasure more enriched. So we used to exchange books and read, and that is how we were introduced to reading. So reading should be associated with joyful learning, correct? So, and that makes us a proficient reader also, to read with proficiency quickly so that we get another material to read. Thank you.
No, thank you. Shiladitya sir.
Is it working?
Yes, I can.
I think I can relate to both the stories over here because we had central libraries. I also grew up in Delhi, in Artipuram, which is mostly government offices stay there. And summer break was all about going to the central library, spending the whole day over there. And besides that, newspapers. I think there was more reading stuff in those newspapers in the 80s and 90s, which we would devour every day in the morning, right? And now, as Sir said, everything is the mobile. And as long as children are reading from there, that's fine. I think, so childhood days, reading.
Very interesting, very difficult to speak in the last because they cover most. So, but I have a little different thought, like the reading is the engine which basically energizes your right and left brain. This is the mool mantra of our entire Bharatiyata. That is where, Indians are always, can do a jugaad better than anyone else because they read different kind of material. I still remember early morning we used to wait for newspaper. I'm from South India. So we used to wait for newspaper. That is where I picked up my Telugu. Because, most of us studies in English medium and you don't even understand the local language. But the early morning newspaper used to give lot of information, lot of knowledge repository to us, which was really missing now because I don't see any physical newspapers. I mean, it drastically reduced. But what a fun days, we used to have. And exchange of books, as Sir said, that was a wonderful feeling because you have something, which has value into it. So, आपका दोस्त अगर अरे यार please मुझे वो पुस्तक दे दो, we used to. And I still remember there's I don't know how many of you from Telugu speaking or Tamil speaking or Kannada speaking, Chandamama book. There's a beautiful, extraordinary, fun book. I still remember most of the ghost stories in that. I mean, the kind of a fun what we used to have is completely transformed in this digital busy world. And most of our kids got stuck inside something called a visual, globe, then a physical entities. They all are immersed completely into a 3D games, immersed completely into a virtual games. They stopped playing with others, they stopped talking with others, they stopped reading books because reading basically empowers, energizes all your kundalis. So which was really missing. The only place they are putting all their energies here. I think, this is giving lot of stress to our children. I think slowly we need to, very unfortunate thing, man, we even stop printing also nowadays. Most of them are encouraging ki online pe based on digital. Do you know how much it is affecting our children eyes? I'm feeling so sad when I visit a school, sir. 80% children are having specs with 4 plus, 5 plus, minus 5, minus 5.5. Imagine their situation after 35 years of their age. Very difficult. I think, the printing the book and, making them read physically, I think, matters a lot. I think as a parents, I think it is very important for us to encourage in that area. Maybe we will discuss further on this.
No, thank you so much. I think you can tell the age of a person by knowing how much they paid on rental for these books at one point of time. I connect to everybody who spoke before me that the fact that we picked our reading habits from these bartering the books or getting them cheaply. I remember my love of reading started with comics where you could get a Dhruv or a Nagraj for 50 paise for a day or 2 days, and during summer vacations that was loot. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about how schooling system is looking at the reading as not just a skill that you spoke about, sir, but also how do we inculcate the kind of habits of reading. I want to hear from the panelists on what do you think are some of the key components that make reading as a culture possible for a school system, and then eventually a school as a unit. What are some of the components that you think need to come in together? What should either practitioners be looking at it from a systemic level, or a teacher when it comes to whether teacher capacities, teacher training, or technology can enable? So how do we foster this culture of learning, or learning through reading that you talk about for the school system?
In UP, for example, we have just come out in November with two. In Uttar Pradesh, we have come out in November with two conscious circulars to encourage reading in schools, secondary as well as in junior high and primary. None of them require any budget actually. In order to inculcate a reading habit or a reading thing, you don't require to a budget. The books are there, library is there, only reading is missing. So for that, one has to think of inventive activities around reading. For example, when we were kids, our parents used to ask, editorial statesman का पढ़ोगे ना, उसमें से जो difficult शब्द है ना, उसको underline कर लेना. Statesman ही कहते थे, मुझे याद है अभी भी. Somehow, at those days, statesman माना जाता था कि उसकी English सबसे अच्छी होगी, तो सबसे difficult, फिर उसको dictionary में देखना. So, for example, small activities like every Saturday, one student of the class will give a synopsis of one book that she or he has read over the week. It's a very small activity. Or in a month, appreciate that student who has read the maximum number of books. Very simple activities like sometimes calling an author to the book to meet the students. Not very difficult. A simple thing like issuing books from the library. One of the main grudge I have against my school is that my librarian never issued a single book in my entire class 12 years. She used to give the books for the library class. यहीं पढ़ो और फिर छोड़ के चले. So I don't know how many you have faced that, but I faced that. क्लास 1 से लेकर 12 तक मेरे लाइब्रेरी ने मेरे को एक किताब इशू करके दी, and I can still feel the pain of that. So simple thing like issuing books from the library regularly can change things. Books हैं, but simple things like the teachers reading themselves in the staff room, parents reading themselves in the evenings. बच्चे वही करते हैं जो पेरेंट्स और टीचर्स करते हैं. अब हम कुछ भी बोलते हैं, खुद पढ़ते नहीं और उनको कहते रहे कि बुक पढ़ो बेटा, बच्चे बुक पढ़ो. कोई नहीं पढ़ने वाला. वो देखेंगे कि माँ बाप पढ़ते हैं तो वो पढ़ेंगे. हमने तो 10 दिन साल में कोई किताब नहीं पढ़नी और उनको कहेंगे बेटा पढ़ो जरूर. कोई कौन पढ़ेगा? So we have to first make ourselves tune to reading and then discuss about reading things. वो होगा, हो सकता है. थोड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ ये भी है कि क्या लिखा जा रहा है. जैसे मैडम कह रही थी कि पहले के ज़माने में न्यूज़पेपर्स में कॉमिक स्ट्रिप भी होती थी, एक बच्चों के लिए भी होता था. आज के न्यूज़पेपर में देखिए आपको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, कोई कॉमिक स्ट्रिप है ही नहीं, वहाँ एडवर्टाइजमेंट है. हमने बंगला पढ़ना सीखा था दिल्ली में रह, मेरे पास कुछ नहीं होता. मेरे पास एक शाम को बंगला की न्यूज़पेपर आती थी, क्योंकि वो एक दिन बाद आती थी. उसमें वो फैंटम आता और एक स्पोर्ट्स पेज आता था. हम लोग को स्पोर्ट्स पेज ही पढ़ना होता था, ऊपर बाकी कुछ नहीं पढ़ना होता था. स्पोर्ट्स पेज पढ़ते तो फैंटम पढ़ते तो उसी से बंगला सीखे. We have to find out different ways and find out what is kicking with the students. अब हम उनको कहते हैं प्रेमचंद पढ़ो शुरू से, तो प्रेमचंद थोड़ी ना पढ़ेगा. अब उसको कहो कि पहले फैंटम पढ़े फिर प्रेमचंद पढ़ेगा.
Okay. No, thank you so much, sir. I think just outlining what I'm taking ahead is, one is the types of activities. That reading doesn't have to be limited to the act of reading. It has to also translate into showcasing that you have processed that information some way, which whether it is through synthesis or having conversations about what you read or reproducing that. Sometimes one of the activities that we were also asked to do is to write your own stories, but that's only possible when you read enough of them. Second is access to books, not just point in time कि अभी यहीं पर बैठ के पढ़ो अगले 20 मिनट के लिए, कि आप इसको घर ले जा सकते हो, कि आप एक हफ्ते के लिए ले जा सकते हो. And third is, I think, so that you talked about, is seeing a role model who does this for you. If you are saying if students don't see role models, as readers as role models, people who are reading either around them or whether you bring in an author, I think that's that also changes the game. Ma'am, what do you? I know a part of role modeling falls on teachers, but would love to hear from you as to what kind of changes could help teachers understand this, that the reading as a culture is an important part of the phenomenon. And there are teachers who also already understand what can be done to be able to bring that to the fore and be able to do it for more teachers.
Role modeling is very important, and the role models we can see at home also and also at school. If we see a reading culture around us, so definitely children will also get into a habit of reading. So we need to bring children to the habit of learning. And some of the interesting activities sir has already mentioned. And we used to introduce our pupil teachers to newspaper reading in the assembly. And also we can develop reading clubs also. Children who read some books, they can summarize what they have read in the book so that other children also get encouraged to reading. So being a person from technology, I would like to address the issue of accessibility is not a challenge now, because we have a lot of books which are published online. The IKSHA in itself is a repository of textbooks. The previous session was about National Digital Library. We have everything digitally available, but we need to do away with reels to read. That is the whole thing that we need to focus upon. And for that, we as parents and as teachers need to be alert. We need to give them assignments or tasks related to reading, be it digital or physical. So then only we can bring culture of reading to our children.
Oh, thank you so much, ma'am. And because we are on the topic of reels to read, I know every time there is a conversation between reading and the kind of access it provides, but at the same time is also kind of there's a sticky space where how do you use technology? So I'll bring it to you, sir, in terms of talking about you must be getting put on spot every single time there is, oh, technology further divides, and what can be done with the technology that can increase access not only to the material but also how does the technology help build these habits? Because like sir said, like the visual activities, visual things are quicker to build. A reel is always a little more catchy than let's say a page of a book. So one is what does technology do to be able to increase access, but also within that access, what has been technology doing to make reading a more exciting activity?
Thank you. Very interesting question, because whenever I'm observing my 5th standard son, so I understood one thing. There are two types of readings. One to acquire knowledge, second to execute. Example, when he is giving exam, that is where he is executing what he read and what he learned. Second time, he is acquiring the knowledge, so he is gaining. So the brain works in a different pattern, when you are using. So the technology can help in those areas, sir, because the extraordinary document after Constitution of India is in NEP 2020. It talks about inclusivity. So I always think how a blind person can read, how a deaf person can read and understand. I think, this is where the beauty of this entire document, Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas, because when Honorable Prime Minister, I never understood, but, after NDP 22, I understood this is what Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas means, including the technology into it. We can solve this problem. So what we did basically, example, there is a physical book. Now we are converting that into an audio book first, so that people who can't see, they can hear. But with diagrams, example, there is no description of the diagram, still it can visually understand what is there inside the diagram. Even though the description is not defined in a textual format, it can understand, it can read for the person who can't see it. See, that is where I see the extraordinary capability of artificial intelligence and advanced ICRN systems. On the other side, in the people who can see but they can't hear. So for them, the way technology helps is basically we are, Indian government come up with the Indian Sign Language. So we have translated books into Indian Sign Language now. So there is no teacher available for the person with special disabilities. He can utilize this Indian language, sign language technology, and he can understand what is happening there. I think, the technology is basically empowering the students, not only a general student, but the special needy student, and at the same time, sometimes the simulations, some things which you can't basically visualize as a human, because why the reels became so popular, because of the visualization. See, the human brains works in a super active mode if you can give n number of frames at the same period. That is the reason movies are so popular across the world. Because if you show them the simple plain book with a text, right? So your brain activation percentage is only 20%. But if I give you the same text with a pictorial representation, including image, your activation of the brain is somewhere around 40 to 50%. But imagine in the same place I have gave you the simulation. Simulation means nothing but a reel or the videos. Your brain activation percentage is more than 70 to 80%. So the learning, the way our children are learning is completely paradigm shift the way we learn. So that is where I see the technology comes into picture, but at the same time, when they are using this technology, the biggest problem is how much time they are using the screen. Because the more they see the screen, right, the more danger for their eyes. So how we can utilize this technology to summarize, sometimes they are preparing, they have a very short span of time. So they can't go through the entire book to do it, right? So with help of the technology, we will summarize and give them. So now recently we have come up with a technology, ma'am, maybe this is very good for NCRT. What we did was, let's say there's a 8th standard exam. So the student can take an existing question, they can dynamically change the parameters in the diagram. The example 60 degree, they can change it to 45 degrees or 48 degrees. Based on that, the permutation and combinations and the entire question and answer will change. So that they can prepare themselves with the n number of permutation and combinations. If you all remember, if you all given any common entrance test through NT or any other entrance exams, right? So what we do, we basically try to mug up or try to understand the existing last 5 years, 10 years question papers, right? But the matter of the fact is, if you see that question, it is a standard question. So the degree of the angle in that question is same. But now the student can simply go change the angle of the question, or or create his own chemical bond and try out a question. So that is where I see the power of the technology. If we can utilize the technology in a right way for our children as well as for our generation, I think that is where I see the next level of learning. because if you permit me for one more minute, I see that, the Indians has one extraordinary capability of connecting their right and left brain. But if we can connect this with our technology and tradition, right? So that is where I see the books comes into picture. The reading factor, early morning Brahma Muhurta, that is what we call, right? 3:30, if we all can make sure, or at least 4:30, because it's too cold in Delhi. So 4:30 is fine. At least, if you can wake us, our children, and study along with them, at least for 40 to 45 minutes. I think, that will change our country. And the one last thing, sir, the reading, I see that every day. See, now we are in the Reading India, but have we ever posted one saying that, today I read this book? I think we are not motivating our children, saying that, we are reading. We are not reading the books. We are only reading through mobile. I think we need to make sure at least 30 to 45 minutes if we can read through the books. I think this will give lots of motivation to our children, and they will definitely transform themselves, and we are encouraging them to, read the physical books instead of digital content. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for detailing. I did see that the fact that we are not able to invest as much time collectively in being able to create a culture is one of the big gaps. I want to bring it back to my friend from Peepul, where you have worked very closely and you step inside the schools almost on an everyday basis. Now, what are 1-2 things that you think some schools are doing really right, where you are able to see this systemic effort take shape, and actually the culture of reading is quite tangible in those schools? What do you think happens there?
Okay, yeah, I think just a little bit of a background. And before I go to the background, just like to know from the audience, how many of us have studied in a government school? Oh wow, that's a wonderful number here. Because because we work with the government of Madhya Pradesh, School Education Department, we partner with them. And the most important thing that we do is that we start with the teacher, right? And how the teacher can be the agent of making every child read in the classroom, right? But there are obviously problems. There is lack of technology. There is no mobile phone in their hands. So you'll be happy, sir, they are all reading with the hard copies of the books. So there are 2-3 initiatives that we have done. One, of course, Madhya Pradesh government started with special initiative schools called Sandipani schools. And there we worked with the teachers and the school leadership to create spaces where books can be available, right? Now, we know that the infrastructure may not have a library kind of a space, right? But classrooms were made libraries. So they have reading corners, and the entire classroom, there will be a string attached from one window to the other window, and there will be books hanging over there. And the children will be encouraged. No, they don't need to be encouraged, by the way, because there is so much of dearth of books over there that the moment there is no teacher in the classroom, which is sometimes very not available, the teachers are not there, they would pick a book and they will start reading. So it's a question of that ma'am said, we had a print-rich environment at home. So in various ways, one of the ways is like in Diksha platform, ma'am, we created a print-rich environment. How do we create a print-rich environment in classrooms? We have a course on that. Similarly, the same thing, we try to translate that in every schools that we go to that create print-rich environment. And that is one motivator for doing this. So that's one initiative. I mean, and there are lots of details behind it, we can talk about it. But the other thing which probably is taking, we're trying to do is, like we do teacher training. And we do teacher training for maths teachers or science or social science teachers. One thing that we keep a very important section of the training is that make every teacher or help every teacher to how to make a child read the NCERT textbooks, right? So when we are providing them modules, the module will have specific pages which you can actually read with the student in the classroom, right? So it is about creating opportunities for every child, every day, through the teacher to read certain parts of the book, right? So I think various initiatives like that really helps in inculcating that habit when the children are there in the classroom and the teacher is there.
Oh, thank you so much. I think the role of just having organic spaces for children to be able to engage with literature, and that mostly generally happens if its hard copies are available, can't be understated. I want to bring this back to the panel to talk a little bit about, I know reading as a skill is something that the country has progressed on. Latest Passport number says that children have been able to become more skilled in reading. I think here our conversation is more about how do we leverage that to become, to read to learn. That's the jump that we are looking at. My question will be to the panel to talk a little bit about the culture that we are trying to talk about, which is to increase these reading habits for large scales of children. Also needs parental and community involvement to be able to enable that. It just can't be solved at a school level. Are there any thoughts on how we can reorganize either how the schooling system works to be able to work with communities better, or in general how civil societies and technology can also enable parents to see it as an important focus area and not just schools to have a role at it?
I think this learning to read and reading to learn, इनसे आगे भी reading कुछ होना चाहिए. Reading to read. That is what I'm trying to say. Reading only for learning is a very utilitarian concept of reading. When we read actually, and we don't read to learn. When you read To Kill a Mockingbird, you don't read to learn the morality of Atticus Finch. When you read for the sake of reading. So मेरे को लगता है कि हमको इतने utilitarian concepts नहीं होना चाहिए कि reading से हम ये सीखेंगे, reading से ये सीखेंगे, वो तो textbook है उसके लिए. Reading for the sake of reading, और अपने आप चीजें imbibe होती हैं. उसमें उतना cut and dry करके देखने की जरूरत नहीं है. And for the parents, जैसा आप कह रहे हैं, they have to lead by example. That is my first, and we all have a collective responsibility towards kids. So we have to first change ourselves and read first. The teachers have to read first. The society has to read first. Then only you can expect the students to read and the kids to read. I think that is the first thing that we should have. When I go to any school, we talk about books. I love reading, so I talk about books otherwise also. My Facebook posts are about books only. So, but I think it will be an important thing to cultivate the reading habits in schools. One, to reduce the screen time, which is, I think, taking an epidemic proportion now. People are spending 4, 5, 6 hours within 24 hours on screen, on whatever, you may say reels or you may say textbook, whatever. It's epidemic proportions, and one has to understand that one cannot go on like this. In order to increase reading, budget is not a constraint, it is just a matter of culture. And that culture can only come when the teachers, parents, and the society as a whole read themselves, talk about books, have activities around books. Children will follow.
So, sir has rightly mentioned that reading should be for the joy of reading, and learning eventually happens. So it takes us to a quest of learning if we read, and that is something that our education system was lacking, and that is why in NEP 2020, National Policy of Education 2020, literacy and numeracy, foundational literacy and numeracy has come up in a big way, because until and unless we have proficiency in language, we cannot learn also. Although there is everything right with our cognitive makeup, but still if language development is not there, we are not able to read, write and comprehend. Learning won't happen. So it should start from a joyful introduction to reading through the interesting literature that we come across. And it was very sad to hear that books were not issued. Until and unless we cater to the interest of children, just give them freedom to grab books on their own. वो issue भी नहीं होना चाहिए. That trust should be there. बच्चों के लिए बुक्स अवेलेबल हों और वो पढ़ पाएँ अपने पसंद का लिटरेचर. And that brings us to the more complex reading and learning. Language gradually develop. And at the foundational stage, as we know, the brain of the child is most fertile. If you reflect now how many words in a year you learn, but a child learned the entire language composition by the age of 3 or 4. So that means his or her mind is fertile to learn language, fertile to learn reading, fertile to learn writing. So that is the time where we have to expose them to a lot of reading material, a lot of interesting literature to inculcate a culture of reading, and learning will eventually happen. As sir mentioned that phantom पढ़ना है, और फैंटम फिर हमें ले जाता है और भी न्यूज़पेपर में जो कॉलम्स हैं और चीज़ें हैं उसकी तरफ. Then we start reading and learning more complex societal, political and other issues, and the learning or events which are happening around us. So the joy of learning is, joy of reading is very, very important that we have to introduce our children to. Thank you.
I just want to continue what ma'am said. I always question myself, what is that we are reading? Because there are 180 million books are available in the world, approximately. 90% books are English written. A remaining percent, most of them are Chinese. But in India, I mean, the only 1 to 2% are Hindi written books. But in India, we speak 22 official languages. 85% people don't understand English. So who is reading what, and what is that, the parents are teaching to the children? See, this is the biggest disconnect I see. Because we don't have books in regional languages, sir. Because my mother speaks only in Telugu. I don't know, if you give her English book, she can't even understand what it is. I mean, this is a matter of the fact. So there is a disconnect. So that is where the Anuvadini AI, using a technology, what we did, we have created an extraordinary book creation process where you can write book in your own mother language, in Telugu or Tamil or Kannada or Assamese or Bengali or Gujarati, doesn't matter. It will create the entire book. You can straight away publish that book directly. Because what it does, basically, if you are an author, what you do, you write the book in a MS Word, then give it to a publisher, like sir said, there are publishers, what they do, they take that content and put it into InDesign, and they utilize Photoshop or CorelDRAW to create an image and put it inside the book. So you need n number of 5 licenses just to print one book. It will take 1 to 1.5 years. So in order to cut short that and make sure that Indian books are emerge as soon as possible, as fast as possible, we have created this software called Anuvadini Print. You can simply log in and you can start writing in your own language, and at the end of the day you can click of a button. It will instantly translate your book into 22 Indian and 57 foreign languages, period. So that you have your own book ready as soon as possible, within a month, not within a years. That is the first plus point. The second plus point is you can instantly translate that into a number of other Indian as well as foreign languages, and you can send it for a validation online itself so that they can do all small corrections. The beauty is the minute you click a print, it straight away prints like this, like a book. That's the beauty of Anuvadini Print. It's a make in India, our own software, what we have built in. I welcome all of you. Our office is in Vasant Kunj. You please come down and see this wonderful, extraordinary tool which we have created for our own people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any last 10-second point? And in the audience, I'll take 2 questions. That's all we have time for.
Can I just...
yeah.
So, talking about parent and community involvement, I think first thing is awareness that reading is important. So, on one hand, we collaborate partner with the government of Madhya Pradesh. On the other hand, we have corporates like the Axis Bank, which funds us to promote all these kind of activities. So what we do is, our parents who send their children to government schools in Madhya Pradesh, they are not literate themselves. So we reverse the process. And instead of the parents reading out to the children, it is the children who read out to their parents. Yeah. So print-rich environment that I was talking about is not about limited to the school building, it's also the home. Right? So, and the community sees that happening over a period of time, that the गांव, the संकुल, हर जगह पे जो जितने भी schools हैं, उसके आसपास जितने भी घर हैं वहाँ पे धीरे धीरे आपको दिखेंगे कि बच्चे शब्दों को दीवारों पे लगा रहे हैं और उन्हीं को लेके घर पे बातचीत हो रही है। तो पढ़ने का जो माहौल है उसे हमें फैलाना है, अवेयर करना है लोगों को कि हाउ कैन रीडिंग बिकम अ पार्ट ऑफ आवर डेली लाइफ, राइट? दैट्स व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू डू.
Thank you so much, Shiladitya. Do you have any?
Yeah. And technology is not always harmful for children. And that is true that we need to maintain the screen time of our children. But being technology in place, we can also bring a rich environment, reading rich environment, we can say it now. For foundational learner, there is an initiative called Jadui Pitara, where all the content related to reading, foundational literacy is there. And students can, there is AI bots also associated to this particular app. And children can ask anything, any story to tell to the app. And it gives the story in the oral as well as in the text form. So it is up to you to how to utilize all such technology enabled initiative to build a culture, a habit of reading. And it also appears very interesting for the children to ask for a story to a AI bot, and it instantly creates a story and tells a student or reads the story to the students. And also one of the challenge which Buddhaji already mentioned is that India is a multicultural and multilingual society. So when it comes to technology, it becomes a big challenge, whether the printed books are there or content, online content is there. Mostly the content is available in English. But now with the help of AI, like Anuvadini is already mentioned, we can do instant translation of the content which are there. And we have built this AI with our courses also, which can instantly translate pedagogical courses for teachers into 14 languages. So that AI enablement is already there on Diksha. There is a read aloud facility on Diksha, which is also AI supported. So we need to find ways how to leverage technology to build a culture of reading and learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll take one question from audience if anyone has a pressing question. Okay, then I'll do one better. I'll ask for a book recommendation from my panelists on one book that they think that has really shaped them and that audience can look forward to reading. Sorry, I didn't.
आप सबको नमस्कार। मेरा नाम रमेश है, एमसीडी स्कूल में टीचर हूँ। मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा आप लोगों को सुनकर, लेकिन मेरे कुछ सुझाव हैं। एक तो राष्ट्रीय ई पुस्तकालय में सिर्फ एक अक्षर ई है जो इंग्लिश का है, बाकी राष्ट्रीय भी हिंदी है, पुस्तकालय भी हिंदी है, लेकिन यहाँ पे दोनों सत्र में पूरी इंग्लिश का बोलबाला रहा। मेरा सुझाव है कि इसको बाइलिंगुअल कर दीजिए, द्विभाषी कर दीजिए। दो भाषाओं में हो तो ज़्यादा बेटर होगा, क्योंकि हो सकता है कि नहीं समझ में आ रही है आपकी बातें, लेकिन मेरा सुझाव, हमारे बच्चे हिंदी भाषी हैं, ज़्यादातर बच्चे हिंदी भाषी हैं, तो इस ऐसे प्रोग्राम्स को आप लोग प्लीज़ दो भाषाओं में क्या कीजिए। दूसरी बात कि बच्चों के ऊपर पाठ्य पुस्तकों का, टेक्स्ट बुक्स का इतना लोड है। आप कल्पना कीजिए कि तीसरी क्लास में एक 7-8 साल का बच्चा होता है, उसके ऊपर 5 किताबें जो बेसिक आ जाती हैं, हिंदी, इंग्लिश, मैथ, CBS, SST, 5 किताबें, उनमें 3 किताबें इतनी मोटी मोटी होती हैं, EVS की, मैथ की और इंग्लिश की और हिंदी की भी। एक सिर्फ सामाजिक की किताब है, सामाजिक अध्ययन की, जो पतली होती है। बच्चे पूरे साल में उसे कवर नहीं कर पाते। प्रेमचंद की कहानी ईदगाह पढ़ने की उन्हें फुर्सत ही नहीं मिलती, कैसे पढ़ेंगे बच्चे। और यही नहीं, उन 5 किताबों